Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. You'd say good afternoon back. That's okay. I'd like to begin by acknowledging several members of our leadership team here in the Office of Attorney General who worked so diligently on this incredibly important case. Because of social distancing, folks are a little bit spread out in the room, but I want to acknowledge and thank Michelle Henry, our Executive Deputy Attorney General, who's often over my right arm here, our First Deputy Attorney General, our Executive Deputy Attorney General of our Criminal Division, Jennifer Selber, our Executive Deputy Attorney General of our Public Protection Division, Jim Donahue, our Chief Deputy Attorney General for Fair Labor, Nancy Walker, Chief Deputy Attorney General Kirsten Hine, Senior Deputy Attorney General Tony Foray, Senior Deputy Attorney General Chris Halleck, Deputy Attorney General Phil McCarthy, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Eisenberg, and Supervisory Narcotics Agent Tom Moore. As you could tell by the many leaders within our office, this is a big case and a complex case, and it required a lot of big brains around the table doing the work. And I'm indebted to them on this case and every day on behalf of the good people of Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, workers have a right to a legal wage for an honest day's work. And when these workers work on a project funded by the government, funded by the taxpayers, to build a bridge or update a highway, the law requires that they be paid something known as prevailing wage. The prevailing wage is a term outlined in the Davis-Bacon Act, which levels the playing field, ensuring workers make a fair wage for their work. It's not set by the employer, but rather by state and federal agencies. They calculate it based on where the project is and the type of work involved, and contractors must agree to pay that wage in order to do a state project. So say your construction company wins a bid to build a highway in western Pennsylvania and sets the prevailing wage at $30. Every single dollar of that 30 must go to the worker. Usually, one portion of it is paid in wages or take-home pay, and the rest is then paid in what's known as fringe benefits, things like health care and a retirement plan. So let me explain what that means in very real and practical terms for the highway painter in Center County. The prevailing wage for that job in Center County was about $39 an hour. That doesn't mean that the worker is seeing $39 an hour in their paycheck every 2 weeks. They may be earning, for example, $22 an hour in wages to buy groceries, pay the mortgage, do whatever it is that they do with that money. And then the question is, what about the other money, the other $17 on top of those wages for the total of $39 an hour? Well, the law requires that that individual worker receive health care, retirement, and other benefits out of that $39, the set prevailing wage for that job. So while the ratio between the wages and the benefits may change, one thing always remains constant under the law. All of it must be paid to the worker. That is the law. We're here today because those laws were broken in Pennsylvania in an unprecedented manner. Today, I am announcing criminal charges against Glenn O. Hawbaker Incorporated, one of Pennsylvania's largest construction companies, for stealing more than $20 million from workers here in Pennsylvania. For over 30 years, this company has been responsible for billions of dollars in projects, including building hundreds of roads and bridges like the Wattle Road Interchange in State College and the Huntley Road Bridge in Erie County. From 2003 to 2018, Hawbaker was awarded, get this, $1.7 billion in contracts from PennDOT alone. During that time, they fleeced workers in order to put more money back into their pockets. They defrauded taxpayers who ultimately pay for these projects and cost honest companies a fair shot at these bids. For decades, Hawbaker led everyone to believe that they were playing by the rules. Get this, they even advertised that they offered, quote, the best employee benefits around, paid for by the company. That was their advertisement. On paper, it actually looked like Hawbaker was going above and beyond for their workers. But it was all a lie. It was all a lie. In reality, they were engaged in a massive, unprecedented fraud on two distinct fronts. So here's what they did. First, they underfunded employees' retirement accounts to the tune of at least $15 million over the past 5 years alone. Instead of putting the amount of money prevailing wage workers were owed into the 401k, they used some of it to pay non-prevailing wage workers pensions, essentially taking from one group of workers to pay for the rest of the company. So here's how it worked, right? The guys doing the back-breaking work on Pennsylvania's roadways had their retirements stolen from them in order to go into the pockets of the C-suite executives. That's how the fraud worked. This left employees nearing retirement with much less than they had earned and expected to have had in actual contributions and growth over the years. So this left these workers, the workers doing the backbreaking work on our roadways, for example, with two really bad choices, right? Number one was to retire at age 65 with less than they had earned, or work another 5 years just to make up the gap of what was taken from them. They missed years because of that with their grandchildren and vacations and quiet days of retirement, working on hobbies and hunting and fishing and traveling and doing what it is that they had earned the right to do. That's how the first scheme worked. But you see, Hawbaker didn't stop there. The second way they increased their profits was to use phony billing to inflate the cost of health care benefits to further steal from workers and help their corporate execs. Okay, so think about the bill that comes from the hospital for, say, a $20,000 emergency room visit, right? If you have health insurance, you're not paying that $20,000. The real cost is about $2,000 on that visit. Except here's what Hawbaker did. They claimed that they paid the full $20,000, which made it look like they were paying more for health care than they actually did. So now you're scratching your heads wondering, why did they do this, right? Well, here's why they did it. Because overstating the value of their health care plan allowed Hawbaker to report that they met that prevailing wage when they were only paying a portion of what was due to the workers and actually pocketing the rest. That's what they were doing. Here's some facts. The criminal complaint shows in 2018 that the company, Hawbaker, claimed it cost them $18.65 an hour to cover those health and welfare costs. $18.65. Want to know what the real number was? $6.67. And so recall, under our prevailing wage laws, they've agreed to pay the full amount of that to the worker. And it's a crime for them to keep that difference, that money, for themselves. So this $12 an hour difference that I just described, well, that belonged to the worker. But instead, Hawbaker kept it for themselves. Keeping this money allowed them to do the following. You see, they could underbid honest companies by using the money they were stealing from their workers to offset their other costs, stealing from their own workers to then deny honest contractors and their workers the opportunity to do work for this Commonwealth. And here's the thing, they weren't stupid about it. This was a sophisticated operation that spanned many years. So where did the money go that was legally required to go to the workers under our prevailing wage law? Well, it all went to Hawbaker's bottom line, like funding internal projects, company bonuses, undercutting competitors so that their unfair practices could continue. They used that money that belonged to the workers as they saw fit, when instead it was legally required to go to those workers. We learned what Hawbaker was doing from folks with their boots on the ground, keeping a close eye on how contractors pay workers and making sure that workers get paid the wages that they earn. With the company's eventual cooperation, we meticulously went through their books and we found, and these folks found, that their numbers didn't add up. My team, who's here with me today throughout this room, combed through literally thousands of records, finding every trick used to illegally underpay workers. This was an extremely difficult and detailed investigation, and I'm incredibly proud of our team for seeing it through. Today, just a couple hours ago, Hawbaker was charged with 4 counts of theft related to violating Pennsylvania Prevailing Wage Act and the federal Davis-Bacon Act. Due to the statute of limitations, Hawbaker can only be charged on their wage theft back to 2015. Hear me on this. This is the largest Davis-Bacon prevailing wage criminal case in U.S. history. This is the largest Davis-Bacon prevailing wage criminal case on record in U.S. history. Our focus now? Well, it is on holding Hawbaker accountable for breaking the law and, most importantly, getting these workers their money back. To that end, I should note that the company has cooperated with our investigation and is continuing to do so. I recognize that thousands of people across Pennsylvania are finding out right now for the first time that they were a victim of this company's crimes. If you are a worker and you believe that you've been victimized, we want to hear from you. And we've set up a special hotline for you to contact us. That number is 814-746-3518. 814-746-3518. It is important to note that we know who the victims are in this case, and we will also be reaching out to them. But we do encourage you to call us, contact us, and share your story. Because these stories are the stories of real people. These stories are the stories of real folks throughout Pennsylvania. One of those workers was Harry Ward from Aaronsburg in Center County. Harry worked for Hawbaker for 30 years, the last 8 as a carpenter on a bridge crew. As Harry approached his retirement, he started getting concerned. He noticed on his statement that contributions were so much less than he had logged over the decades when he was keeping track of all of his work. So Harry went to PennDOT and finally was able to receive a breakdown of how the company claimed that it was paying its benefits. It didn't match up with the records that Harry kept for himself of what he should have been paid. Harry was short thousands of dollars in contributions that were never made on his behalf, not to mention the earnings and growth to the account that would have come from those contributions had they been made. Well, Harry, you were right, and I want to thank you for sounding the alarm. I want to thank you for sounding the alarm on behalf of thousands of workers across Pennsylvania. You're the hero in this story, and we're grateful to you. And, Harry, hear me on this. We are going to get you your money back. Protecting paychecks is a top priority of mine as Attorney General. It is why we created the Fair Labor section on my first day in office back in January of 2017, led by Chief Deputy Attorney General Nancy Walker. Pennsylvania workers needed a lawyer. and that's the role that we play on their behalf. But I want to say a word, not just to the workers, but to the employers here in the Commonwealth. I want to tell you that you are now on notice. If you steal from your employees, if you misclassify workers, if you violate our labor laws, we are going to find you and we are going to hold you accountable to the fullest extent of the law. We will do all we can so that Pennsylvania workers receive the wages and the benefits that are owed to them under the laws of this Commonwealth and this country. We will not let big corporations and powerful interests rip away the integrity of a hard day's work. This is the third in a series of prosecutions related to wage theft and misclassification over just the last few months. And let me make a promise to you today, this will not be the last. Too often, workers that get stolen from are underpaid. They've been denied benefits, and they've been put into dangerous situations without appropriate training. My office is committed with our partners in law enforcement to make sure that workers are treated right. We are watching, and we are prepared to hold employers accountable to the law and to protect Pennsylvanians' paychecks and their retirements. With that, I want to thank you for being here. I'm incredibly indebted to our team for their hard work, and I'd be happy to answer some of your questions. Mark.
One simple question. Do you have a number of victims, alleged victims?
It's in the thousands.
And when you say the companies cooperate, do you expect a plea? Would they have been charged with other things if they hadn't cooperated?
I think I'll have more to say on that in the future, and I'll leave it to the company to speak for themselves.
I was going to ask, who do you charge in instances like this? That seems like a very sophisticated accounting crime more than an Elliott Ness situation. I mean, is the accountant that was behind this, do you know who that is? And is that somebody that...
Pardon me, I'm sorry. The charges we announced today are against the corporation under the laws of this Commonwealth.
Will you be announcing charges against individuals as well?
The charges I'm here to announce today are against the company, and as I said in response to Mark's question, at this point they're being cooperative.
Okay. I have another question.
Sure.
Will Hawbaker be eligible to bid on future projects with this charge?
I think that's more of a question for a regulatory agency.
Do you have advice to workers, because he's obviously paying attention to what his paycheck has in regards to benefits, but so many probably didn't. Is there something they should be looking at, or should be looking at in your view, to just open up something that you think is something that might be overlooked and might be more widespread than this one company?
Look, I think workers like Harry deserve to get paid every cent that they are owed in wages or in benefits. Harry kept meticulous records. I don't know that all workers did that, but certainly they can reach out to our office through that hotline. We'll do everything we can to match up their records or their belief of what they're owed with what they were in fact owed. Understand that we know specifically what was stolen from workers here, and that we are going to do everything in our power to get that money back for each and every worker who's been victimized.
Would there be civil action accompany this? And I guess, like, for the remedy, are you just making the workers whole, or are there going to be settlements that will exceed the wages that were
Sure.
set?
I can only speak to the criminal charges that we bring today, and a big focus of ours is going to be getting workers back the money that they are owed.
Are 4 counts of theft, is that sufficient in your opinion? Given what happened?
That is what the law calls for. They're being held criminally accountable in what is the largest case of its kind in United States history. This is the appropriate sanction, and now the proper remedy is to make sure they're not only held accountable, but that the workers are made whole.
Do you have any reason to believe that these specific practices in terms of inflating the benefits and putting in charges that shouldn't be in it? Any reason to think that they were used by other companies, or is this something that was sort of allegedly developed by them, and you have no reason to think it's gone beyond them?
As I said at the end, all employers in the Commonwealth should be on notice that we are watching, and we are actively engaged in several other investigations across the Commonwealth involving wage theft and worker misclassification.
Was this a grand jury investigation?
I'm not going to comment on that.